What is going on, guys? Welcome to another edition of the TikToker Talk. I'm here with my
TikTok
friends.
I like it.
I'm here with my friends mattvs.politics, as I just found out that was the name, not Matty Politics, and Uncle Dan. We're going to be covering some, news of the day, maybe some TikTok stuff, but we have a couple things that I want to get to. And first, I want to share some couple clips with you guys. This is basically just what's been going on kind of at these rallies and protests the last couple days. This was in, make sure you guys can, okay. This is in Georgia the other day. This is a group of Trump supporters on the balcony, armed, locked, and loaded. This is a group of Antifa members on the ground, or they were up in they had the high ground there, the Trump supporters. This is a bunch of Antifa members on the same street, locked and loaded. More Antifa members locked and loaded. And then you have, that guy's got a jetpack, but then, you have this kind of stuff going on in DC. This is DC. And, just chaos in DC last night, more chaos. Proud Boys. Where's the video? Oh, you got Alex Jones. This is the one I wanted to show you.
Pedophile, globalist, New World Order, and their walking dead, reanimated corpse, Joe Biden. And we will never recognize him. President Trump had zero connection to Russians, no proof, 4 years of investigation. With the Bidens, it's
sounds like a wrestling promo.
So I don't know who's going
Alex Jones always sounds like a wrestling promo.
Joe Biden,
you can see how big the crowd is.
And Joe Biden will be removed one way or another.
So you have Alex Jones talking about removal of the incoming president to a big applause. You have people getting stabbed. You have Nick Fuentes calling just take down the GOP. And just, one last thing before we get into it. About 70% of Trump supporters in multiple polls don't believe that the election, they believe that the Democrats stole the election. So and that was just yesterday. So with just all this chaos, and I would assume if we go down issue for issue, I'm probably not going to agree with you guys on too much, but I want to just get back to a place where we're just disagreeing about policy. How do we bridge that gap where we're basically just living in two different worlds completely? Solve the world's problems. Go.
I think one way is really just starting with yourself and knowing how you can improve your own relations and in improving these talks, because I know in a lot of ways I've said it multiple times and it's something that I'm constantly working on, but I feel like sometimes, at least on the culture in TikTok, we see a lot of this gotcha kind of culture where it's the videos that a lot of times get the most views for me are when I'm just being mean to somebody. And I think we lost Matt.
Yeah, we lost. And we lost one that quick.
But as I was saying, I think it's and honestly, sometimes that's exhausting for me. When it goes on, because it sucks sometimes knowing I probably just made this person feel like garbage. And that sure, you get the people in the background cheering you on, but it's I want my page to be a net positive, and I think unfortunately that Matt's gone right now, but I actually really
admire. Well, now he's gone again.
I really admired Matt and the way that he is able to really maintain his calm and kind of like go into most of his videos and kind of like like an open nature, kind of open to conversation and saying like, hey, here's my piece, and I'm definitely willing to hear your side. And I think Matt's actually one of the people I respect on the app, even if I don't agree with him on everything. Like I think he does a great job of that, and it's actually something that I kind of like look up to, because I'm trying to, you know, as I said before, not talk down to people, not like I'm trying to swear less. There's a lot of things, because some things just like, not even like politics, like it gets into other topics and they just like really frustrate me, and I sometimes let it get to me. I think so. Just like identifying things in yourself that can, open up those lines of conversation are really important. Okay, he just keeps on going in and out, huh?
Yeah, he's like, he's with us, but he's not.
Just like, hello, goodbye.
Hello. No, but I think you're 100% right, and that's not something I wanted to touch on. Is that because of the social media age, and everybody who's on TikTok making videos is obviously making videos because they want people to see them and they want to grow their account, and that's just the nature of it. You want to put out like good information and stuff, but you're right. The videos of people getting drugged or getting owned, that whole getting dunked on culture, and that's what gets the views. And
Yeah.
I've noticed more and more in my comment section, it's like people kind of want blood. They're like, drag him, get him. And that's why, like, I know, like, me and you, I don't think I've ever had a back and forth with Matt, but I know, like, me and you have had like disagreements, like, back and forth before. And even though, like, we didn't agree, like, it was civil.
Yeah.
And
no,
that might be the only time, one of the only times that I had a civil disagreement on a social media app. You know what I mean? And it's some sanitize. Somebody really likes sanitizer. Okay, hydrate. Got it.
we got you, Matt. You seem more grainy now, but maybe the grainy is what's keeping me here. Who knows?
Right.
Can you guys hear me all right?
Yeah.
Or better?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
better.
Right, cool.
I mean, you're a little grainy, but I mean, we know what you look like.
Yeah, I can piece it together.
That's true.
Let me feel your face.
But yeah, no, and that's one of the reasons Matt came on the other day to debate with Tommy, but I wanted to have him on anyway because I've seen several of his videos and I'm like, oh well, I don't agree with that. But the way he does it is he tries to. I think he does a better job than a lot of the more conservative accounts on the
100%, 100%.
Actually like making a point and not just oh yeah, listen here, dumb liberal, you're gonna get
yeah.
And I just hate that, and I hate it on the left too because it happens on and I think that's one of the worst things especially for younger people, because they just come up in that kind of culture that, I mean, it shouldn't be to that extent. I mean, some people just need to get owned sometimes. That is the case, but for the most part, I think it's bad.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. So on my side, because there are some people, like you said, that it's just like you need a little bit of some stern talking to, but for the most part, like there's just random people like saying their their opinion, and then like I or someone else comes in and be like, let me tell you why you're such an idiot, and then it's like. And then afterwards, I'm just like, I have all these people applauding me, but I'm just like, I didn't need to say that. There was like 4 different things in there, and I'm just like, that was just to be mean and not.
Right. That was simply for clicks. Yeah.
It was.
But I mean, it gets back to the question: what do you think, Matt? As far as how do we, like, what would you say is the number one thing to bridging this kind of information / just connection divide? Like, what how do we solve the world's problems, I guess?
Yeah, no, that's a big question. But I think first, it's addressing the problem. And personally, I think, there's a few problems, I think, as far as what's causing a lot of the polarization. But I think one of the problems we can all probably agree on is media, whether that's, mainstream or alternative media. And so, I think there's some broad ideas we can use, which is probably just pointing out like that sometimes alternative media has a really bad or really negative effect on society, whether it's politics specifically, whether it's the left or the right, generally the right, because we have a lot of alternative media for the right. And then I think there's possibly other things we can do that are a little more nitty gritty, like trying to find ways to hold these alternative media accounts or all forms of alternative media more accountable. One of the great things about mainstream media is that they're a little bit able to hold their people more accountable because they are mainstream, so they're really focused on profits. But alternative media, there's not really as much accountability because they don't have like this big hierarchy over them. And so, I mean, those are a few things, but maybe a little more broad. But
well, no, that's one of the issues that you see with the media too. One of the things that I notice the most, because a lot of, like on my YouTube channel, the biggest thing that I look at is mostly right wing propaganda, like QAnon stuff. Like last night on my stream, I went over like the Tim Pool, Alex Jones podcast, like kind of fact checking it. But what people can do now, because there is so much media, is they can go to any place they want, and instead of getting informed, they get validated. So they they already have, okay, this is what I believe. Let me scroll. Oh, that guy agrees with me. Let me like that and follow him, and that's my new guy. And I'm sure you guys get it the same. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and that's probably one of the other things that we probably need to do as a society, is really try to like encourage people that to even if Blaze TV is like your favorite media site or whatever, I think we should definitely be encouraging people to like say, okay, well, Blaze may be your favorite, but at least try and look at these other sources of media that maybe contradict what Blaze is always saying, and try to have a healthy balance. And maybe that will actually start to turn people in a way that like says, okay, I'm hearing contradicting things, maybe I actually should start looking things up. I think that's something else we could do personally.
Right, and I think when it comes to mainstream media, people and I made a video about this. Actually, I think I stitched one of Dan's videos because I feel like the left is far too trusting of mainstream media. I mean,
I remember that one.
Just the last couple of days, they've gone after Bernie, MSNBC, and CNN because him and Josh Hawley are trying to get an amendment. Josh Hawley's a Republican, so it's a bipartisan bill or amendment to try to get people stimulus checks. One of the things that probably needs to be done the most is people need money. And so, but MSNBC and CNN have been running segments, and they had Bernie on, and they're like, oh, well, you're not being very practical, yada, yada, yada. It's like, instead of going after the 98 senators that don't want to help anybody and are just fighting over giving Amazon liability insurance, you're going after the two guys. They're actually working in a bipartisan way, which is something you guys always preach is so great. You're going after them for not being practical enough. So, and I just think people have to watch out for the narratives of mainstream media. I think I just have to be more curious when it comes to their media diet.
Yeah, and I think there's some people who are pioneering the way and kind of trying to mitigate that problem. I think there's things like I've been contacted by them so many times to like help them advertise their app, and I actually really like it. Both sides political app, which it brings you depending on issue articles from both conservative and liberal media sites, and I think that's really a huge key. Is that's what I've been trying to teach myself, is to never just take one side. Like, you hear a story from one end, if it's important to you, go look it up from another source, and then another one, and then form your own opinion based off of multiple sources. Don't just like listen to Fox News or CNN and just be like, oh, I've got the entire story now I can go tell all my friends.
Right, and what's scary is Newsmax beat Fox in the ratings the other day for the first time, which is a little scary.
That's I mean, you gotta think though, like, because Fox has held that crown for so long that eventually that there was going to be something that's going to kind of shake the ground there. Because basically the greater part of my life, that Fox News has just been the staple of conservative news.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And they're having like an identity crisis, and they don't know whether to like they have a few opinion people that are just riding with Trump till the wheels fall off, and they have a few people that are like, well, this is kind of horse shit though. Like we know, guys, we know, like, but it is horse shit. You know, like they're very kid glove about it, but it's but that's their you know, their golden goose.
There's I think there's a bit of what we're going to be seeing is kind of an identity crisis in almost both parties right now, and they're trying to figure out exactly who they are because as I think we lose a lot of the boomer generation, there's going to be a kind of a reshifting in priorities, and I think we're definitely seeing it in both sides a need for a youth movement in the parties, because I mean I think a lot of people were very disappointed that we were choosing between two men in their mid to late 70s. It's like how in touch can you really be with the median age, which is a 35-year-old in the United States. So
You want to know what the scariest thing about Biden being president is, though? He's the youngest person in Democratic leadership. He's younger than Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi.
How old is Pelosi?
81.
She's doing a good job to keep that face tight.
That's San Francisco Botox, man. I mean, but I heard that today, and I'm like, what the,
Yeah,
Joe Biden, the young and spry youngster of the Democratic leadership. You can't get any. I mean, talk about not representing the whole.
And it's kind of it's what's concerning, because what I like see, especially when it comes to the DNC, is I feel like you have like this elite class of like the old leaders, and then they take people like AOC who they don't even like, and they'll just be like, hey, look, this is who represents the party. Not really at all, but
right.
And I feel like that isn't like a huge issue, and it makes me kind of like, because I've been open about it before. In 2016, like I actually voted for Bernie Sanders, and then I just felt like since then, just like as I started really paying attention to politics in 2000. Right around maybe 2015 or 2014, and then I was full on like ready, and I'm like, oh, I can see some things I can resonate with in the Democratic Party, and then I just, after paying attention, I just completely lost faith in the differential between the leadership and what is like being pushed. And I just feel like, and there's the same problem until like we got to Trump, because obviously he's not a politician, but it's the same song and dance of just like, hey, I say all these things I'm going to do, and then immediately the second I get in office, it's just that's like out the door.
Right. My one solution, I think the right needs to do to get back to more standard issue is the same thing. They need to do away with the leadership in that party, McCarthy, McConnell. I mean, McConnell is one of the worst Senate majority leaders probably in the history of the Senate. Just for
uncomfortable to look at.
What?
I said he makes me uncomfortable to look at. He looks like
did you see him crying the other day?
Guy in Harry Potter or something like that. Like he would be one of like the books. Like this is the 5th book. He's like the douchebag teacher.
I'm like Harry Potter.
It's fair.
No, and he got reelected basically saying, "Hey, I'm not going to let anything get passed." That's what he said. I'm the Grim Reaper. When it comes to the floor, it's done there. And it's like, this guy is literally in leadership because he said he would not get anything done. And that's where the other side just wanting to own the opposite party kind of comes in. It's like, ha, not today, liberals, or ha, we're not doing, just for the simple fact of doing it. And that's where that whole thing we were talking about earlier.
Could get a resurgence of one, I think one of the first and foremost things that I think is going to be incredibly hard to do is ending the two-party system. I think that would solve so many problems, but something a little more manageable, I think, is getting in a resurgence of youth in these parties and people that are going to dedicate themselves to bipartisanship and working with the other side, not going in with the Mitch McConnell thing is like, I'm not going to let anything pass. It's like, hey, I'm going to try to get as many things passed working with the other side, because that's how our government is supposed to work. And then it's just become this toxic mess of like, unless you basically, own everything, it's like you're not going to get anything done.
But what I was gonna say is what I think the Republican Party needs to do is they need to completely just get away from. They need to have somebody come up in the party that disavows Trump and his entire family, because him and the entire family have a stranglehold on the party right now, and they need to do that. But they also need to have fresh ideas. They need to have a solid plan of action, and people need to rally around a new person. Because as long as Trump has the power in the party that he does, even post-presidency, I don't see them getting anywhere. I just think that they need someone new in leadership.
Yeah, I agree. I think they do need more new people in leadership. The problem, though, I think with that, even though I like that idea of a new leadership coming up and disavowing Trump, is I think anyone, at least right now, who comes up and says and runs on a platform of being, I disavow Trump, it's just going to be squashed so hard because so many people, because they're just like a cult-like mentality, I think,
Right. Well, we have a little bit of evidence of that. What was it? Justin Amash, and then what's the other guy? John Kasich. Or like you can just look at the whole Lincoln Project. I mean, that was just a grift. They spent millions and millions of dollars. They got all this money donated to them. And there was actually some research that showed that they helped Republicans get votes. So that didn't really work. I mean, it was just a grift from all, the never Trumper Republican is the most overrepresented on TV, and they barely exist in the wild. It's so crazy to me. Like they're all over TV, but they don't really exist in the wild.
I think it's because of the base in the Republican Party now has gotten so enamored by this even how to the level of which it's actually true is just this like, oh, well, Trump is anti-establishment. And it's kind of like the same reason I think in the country as a whole, people are just are tired of these, career politicians. And even though Trump is a jackass, people are willing to look past that because they're just so tired with this same old song and dance from these politicians. So it's like, I'd rather, I know he's probably going to punch me in the face a couple times, but I want a guy who's smiling at me the entire time he's punching me in the face.
I think there's actually, Dan, like some validity to people's argument for that in a way. I think it's somewhat understandable, even though I think it's not really worth the price you pay for taking the punches in the face. But I think that goes back to what you were saying about trying to find a way to get more youth in our political system. And I think one of the also do that, kind of another solution, which I don't think people talk about, is it kind of has to start with youth or younger people going into Congress first.
Can you hear me? You're kind of cutting out. No.
Yeah, it was kind of out a little bit there. Yeah,
you're cutting out here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. What was the last? Can you hear me now?
Yeah. I think maybe just because I think it's just because your audio is a little bit canned, kind of. If you just talk a little bit slower, I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the last thing you heard?
Top.
Sorry. Oh.
Okay. Just start in the middle, the best place.
I was just going to say, one of the solutions I think we probably could have to trying to fix what, Dan was saying, was is something that people don't really talk about that much, which is trying to get younger politicians in Congress. And it's harder to do that because people don't care about local or state elections as much. And so if we could, really try and push that stuff, maybe we could actually. I mean, you see it in Georgia right now, which is really uncommon. People are really enamored with the two elections for Senate seats in Georgia right now with John Ossoff and I can't remember the other guy. But
Warnock.
Yeah. And so, I mean, if we get some resurgence of like that type of energy for like congressional seats, hopefully in some years in the future we can actually get like some young, better people in the White House. Hopefully.
Well, I think people. One thing that people do a lot is they vote for the president, and they don't. They're like, okay, see you in another 4 years. They don't understand that it's like politics, especially now. It's a 24/7 game. When you're not voting, if you actually want change, if you're not voting, you got to be educating, or you got to be out there getting people registered. Like registration needs to be a full-time job, but the only way you're going to get people registered, because like Dan said, after 2016 and that debacle, he like kind of threw his hands up because why wouldn't you? In fact, there was a thing that just came out the other day that showed the DNC meddled in the Iowa election. That was a big clusterfuck. I haven't read the whole article yet, but basically, yeah, the DNC meddled in the Iowa election. So, that makes people be like, well, why even bother? And so many people get frustrated like that. So we need candidates that are going to be more by the book. We have to get rid of all this. We have to just like clear out the establishment of both parties and like start over.
Honestly, I think that's actually what you're just mentioning there. It is like a huge key to, because honestly in 2016 I voted for Bernie in the primary, and then after I kind of saw, because the DNC like after like the email leak and kind of just showing that they were basically doing very similar things back in 2016 to make sure that Hillary won the primary, it just felt like I felt very just disenfranchised and just like what is the point in participating in these elections when they are going to do everything in their power to make sure that your voice isn't heard. And it just it was very eye-opening for me as well, because like I said, I for my first two elections I voted Republican in both of them, and then in 2016 I just decided not, because I didn't feel good about Trump, but also I was not going to vote for Hillary Clinton. So I just, after the primaries, I didn't vote in the 2016 election, and that was
that's the thing. The biggest majority of people is the ones that don't vote, and that's what we have to change. That if one other, since you guys are more on the other side, how do you guys feel about the electoral college? Like, how do you feel about the actual voting system?
You want to go?
Well, I mean, like I think like I keep on going back to, solving a lot of our problems is going to be ending the two-party system, and whether that is going into like a ranked choice voting system, because there's negatives to everything. I think just like eliminating the electoral college and going to a popular vote just like changes the swing states from the couple that are there now just to like California and New York, which isn't necessary. Like, maybe I'd see more rallies in California, but it doesn't really change the issue, which is that there's 50 states, and during election times they only care about 5 to 6 of them. So I don't exactly. That's kind of where I'm at. I think
like indifferent kind of about it
is going to solve a lot of that.
Yeah, I'm about the same place. I at least want to. I don't necessarily think like the electoral college is a great thing. I agree with Dan on trying to abolish the two-party system, and so I haven't heard anything else pass like a ranked system, but I think it's at least something like we should look into.
Well, I'm personally I'm a much bigger fan of the ranked choice abolish electoral college system than I am of the electoral college, because I think I think we are way too and it's mostly like a grift, but we're way too like stuck in the past as far as like, oh, our tradition is the oldest time, and we need to respect. It's like, no, dude. Okay, I know, like, yes, there are founding fathers. They did a bunch of good shit, but they were like 22-year-old kids, and they put together a country in like the middle of the night. Like, maybe they just didn't get everything exactly right. They said a black person was 3/5 of a vote. Okay, can we just like, maybe we could upgrade it?
And honestly, they occupied like 1/4 of the country at the time too, if that.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So there's a whole lot of change in that, and I think just weighing, because there's no perfect system. There's negatives to everything. I think I was having a long conversation. I kind of wish I could remember some, because I've always kind of thought ranked choice voting, and then I had someone from another country be like, well, there's this and this to think about in ranked choice voting, and I was just like, wow, I didn't even like know that perspective, and now I look like a kind of a dummy just bringing it up and not remembering the point. But I think the point just still stands, and it's like there's not a perfect system. It's like what we can just work together to find what works best for us, and because we're in a unique situation. We're a really large country. We're a country that consists of 50 individual states as a union. That's kind of also a like unique situation that I think kind of gets overlooked by today's a lot of people today. They're like, well, I feel like half the like country is like choosing something else, and it's like, well, we have 50 individual states that are part of like a union. We have like each one has like its own individual share of this union and say within it. So it's like life in Utah is very different than life in Southern California. So it's like they're going to have different interests. So it's like we have to find a system that also best represents everybody, and not just population centers as well.
Right. So I wrote. Do you guys know who Sagar and Jetty is?
Sagar and Jetty.
Sagar and Jetty. He's like I don't know. He calls himself like the part of the new right. He hosts a show that I watch sometime on YouTube called Rising. It's from the Hill. He's full blown conservative, but he's he's not a big Trump fan. He's not really a Trump fan at all. And like, I don't agree with like a lot of what he says, but I feel like he is like a way that like conservatives could go. I don't know if you ever check out like the Hill Rising.
Okay.
He also made a book. He wrote a book. He did not make the book. He wrote a book with Crystal Ball, who also hosts a show called what is it? It's like hold on, I have it here somewhere. Oh, The Populist Guide to 2020, kind of the new like, because I think that's what we need. We need to move in a more like populist direction. But I put down some policies that I think, because I think that's one thing, a way like for people to come together. I think it needs to be, we need more based on policy. And these are like things that I personally think are kind of no-brainers. Money out of politics, stop public officials from profiting off their positions, healthcare reform, infrastructure, climate change policy, ending the wars, raise taxes on the 1%.
I think the one that struck me immediately is money out of politics.
That's my biggest one. That's why it's first.
I have a friend who is a lobbyist, and when he tells me about his job, it just blows my mind. When he's selling these $10,000 tables to like Verizon so they can get a one-on-one conversation with this so and so, and it's just like, no, it's just so ridiculous, because
it's very icky. Yeah.
Like he's like, oh yeah, the other day I just sold like a table to blah 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 for $17,000 just so they can talk to this person, and I was just like,
right. Like, that's why like I thought it was like the Hunter Biden story, for instance. Like we all know Like, no matter, we all know that Hunter Biden traded off his name, made money because his dad was Joe Biden. But the funniest thing to me is anybody thought that was out of the norm. The worst part, like I made a video about it. I said the worst part about the Hunter Biden story is that pretty much everything he did was legal, and that's the worst part about it.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that would seem very, very illegal, and when it comes down to it, it's just like, oh yeah, that's just standard practice here. And yeah, like I said, my friend who was a lobbyist really kind of opened my eyes, because I already knew that money in politics is a bad thing, but then when it kind of gets put into perspective of just like how much just these companies can just buy policy is just really sickening.
Amen. Yeah.
And then how are you supposed to compete as a small business when you have, people like Amazon, lobbying for these practices that they know that small businesses can't keep up with? And then it's like, oh, well, we can do that for our employees, so I guess everybody who can't. Oh, you guys were our competition? I never knew that. That's so strange.
Matt, no?
Yeah, I mean, wait, what was the original question?
Just, I don't know, out of those policies, do you concur, or do you want me to read them again?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. No, most of those, how the first few of them, like you said, it seemed like you kind of ranked them where it had to do specifically with money and government. And I think all of them I would agree with, at least to a certain extent. But yeah, I think, like kind of that Dan was saying, that getting money out of politics, or at least as much as we can, I think has to do something good for what we've got going on. I mean, almost anything should be better than what we got going on right now. But maybe that's just me being a little doomerist.
Right, and the reason I put that first before any like individual policy is because as long as the money is in politics the way it is, you will never get anything done, because the first, at the end of the day, the first thing that's always going to matter is the money. The PACs, the lobbyists, the whole shit show of the system. Citizens United should definitely be overturned. I doubt it ever will now. So the way that's going to have to happen, the way I think it'll happen is just kind of public funding, like we do everything else. The way like Bernie and AOC and more progressives have gotten into Congress. One guy I think there's one Republican that started or stopped taking corporate PAC money. I think it was Matt Gaetz. I'm not sure, but that needs to become more the norm. You start with corporate PACs, and then eventually I would love to see where it was just public funding of elections. They have that in other countries, and I think that's one of the main things we need to do. But yeah, like the whole lobbyist game, like Orrin Hatch's son, he's been a lobbyist for 40 years, profiting off his dad's name, and you could go down the list for days. But it's a terrible system, and you can never get anything done because at the end of the day, they're always just gonna. The people that donate money have a totally different set of problems than we do. You know what I mean?
And I'd love to see publicly funded elections. The problem I also though sense with that is people like Bloomberg or Trump just coming in and just being like, well, I don't need any public funding. Here you go. And then just squashing these publicly funded elections. I mean, the Bloomberg coming in and just dropping $500 million the way he did just blew my mind. It just really just like comes in because he had to know he had like no chance, and then he just comes in. He's like, "Oh, 500 million. Oh well, I guess I'll move on with my life." I just wanted to know, like, what a badass move it would have been for him to just come in and just like fix Flint, Michigan's water, and just be like, well, more of that can come if you elect me, instead of just like, I feel like that would have been the ultimate power move, just being like, I'm going to come in and fix Flint, Michigan's water just because I can.
But don't you know the poors aren't supposed to have water? That's not how that works.
You don't need water. How many years has it been?
5 billion vote for Mike ads.
Just drink out of the Lake Michigan.
You know what's crazy about that whole Flint, Michigan thing is that like the first when they started having all those issues with water, like they didn't do anything about it. But then when the Ford factory started, because of the water, their cars started rusting. They let them switch back to the other water source. So they they gave a fuck about the cars before they did the actual human
We
beings.
need more iron in the water.
Yeah, because it was rust. The water was so fucked up, it was rusting out the cars. When I don't know exactly the process, but at some point they dunk them in water, and the water was rusting it out.
See, this ruined industry.
Yeah,
It's all about the water, guys.
Can't even drink the water. That, and they did like military drills in Michigan too. It was such a shit show.
I think it's kind of like when it's something out of sight, out of mind. But it kind of is like every time I think about it, it just becomes more shocking to me. And I'm like, how many years has it been that they haven't had water now?
Yeah.
Is it going on like 5 years now or something like that?
Oh fuck, it's longer than that. It was during like the middle of Obama's last term, wasn't it? Because remember he did the cringy thing where he drank the water. And he's like, "Oh, I'm thirsty. Somebody give me some water." And he like drank the Michigan water. It's like
they're cured.
It's all good. It's all right. It's like, dude, yeah, it was bad, and that's another thing about as far as media is I want, like, it's not going to happen. That's what I kind of like about. I haven't checked out that Both Sides app, but I think it's only on Apple. Only on the Apple App Store, because I've looked for it a couple of times on Android. That was a while ago.
Oh, you're a green bubble, huh? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not cool.
I think there's
Honestly, with
also
some of the stuff
another.
they're doing, they're pissing me off. They're like taking like the headphones and the chargers out. They're like, oh, you guys don't need that. There's just plenty just floating, even though we change them every like 3 models. So good luck.
I think there's also another app. I don't know if you've looked for this one. Driven. It's called like Ground News. I don't know if that's what it's something like that. And it's almost the exact same thing, like Both Sides, but it has all different kinds of features. But I tried using that for a while, and that one was pretty good. Shows both sides, or even shows like a spectrum. But I liked that one a lot. And I think the pushing of that type of technology or those types of apps are really good.
Yeah. And also, like, a willingness to, because I don't know if you guys saw, because I had and it's actually, I can't remember what his name is. You've had him on here a couple of times, but he, like, called me out for following him, being like, oh, we have different views, like, why would we? And I'm just like, well, because, like, if I see a video for someone and I feel like, even if I disagree with them, I feel like if they present their point in a way that I can at least like see where they're coming from, I'm gonna follow them. I'm gonna follow them because I enjoy like stimulating myself, whether it's like someone with a different view or not. And I think encouraging that kind of mindset rather than just being like, only follow people you agree with. Why would you ever follow someone you disagree with? And then creating those echo chambers where you're just going to get even more dug down into your views, where it's like there's certain things where because of the people I follow, I'll have a certain view on it, and then like a video will come up, and then I'll be like, wow, I like maybe it's not going to completely change my mind, but like I have a new perspective on that, and I really appreciate that I wouldn't have gotten had I not followed that person who doesn't share my political beliefs, it just really shocked me, the reaction he had to me following him. I'm like, you're like offended. You're offended that I follow you. And I'm like, why would you like?
Yeah,
I think it's cool.
I've had that same issue with. Yeah, I've had that same issue with people. I liked how you talked about it. Well, I remember that video, Uncle Dan, when you did that, because I thought it was so funny. But like, I've had that exact same problem where like I follow people I disagree with. Like almost every person I make a video on, I'll try and follow them. That way I can see their stuff. And a lot of times, or not a lot of times, but sometimes they will either follow me and then unfollow me later, or they'll block me. And it's just, and they don't understand it. And but I did like how you talked about it. And I think that was pretty cool. Maybe like help people understand that kind of like thought process that we're going through with that.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and I try to follow both sides. One, just because of like the content I talk about, but I want to know like what the other side, what their thought process is behind stuff, and as long as they're not like, super far right propaganda. I'm not gonna follow like a groiper, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I'll follow people that I don't agree with, and check out their content. Just for I never want to think like I know like I'm set in my ways. You know what I mean? Like I used to be a lot more anti-gun than I am now. Different things like that. I used to
And I
not understand how much of a big deal money in politics was, stuff like that. So I'm always trying to evolve. You never know who you're gonna learn that shit from.
I think it like super hurts your cause and your argument when you don't know like what the person you're arguing with. Like I see this a lot with like abortion arguments. Like either side, both left and right, they like don't understand. They just fundamentally don't understand what the other person's argument is, and that causes like serious issues. And so, I think it's always like super beneficial to like try and listen to as many people as you can, because it can get really, really bad if you don't, I think.
And I feel like that comes from, being in an echo chamber and then constantly just like straw manning an argument. And then when you come to the actual argument, like both of them have been straw manning the other person's position for so long, they don't even like know how to like actually comprehend the actual position anymore, because they've just gotten so dug into assuming that like, yep, this straw man that I beat the shit out of like 8 different times is what every single person thinks. And it's like, yeah, it's like, variety is the spice of life, people. Like there's plenty of there's certain topics, actually, honestly, that I try to stay away from, not because like I don't have an opinion on it, but it's just like it's not that important to me. I'm like debating people that are like this is something super serious to them, and I feel like a little bit disingenuous because I'm like I'm arguing this point against you, but it's like I don't even really care this much about this like particular thing. And that's the problem that I have sometimes, is like I really love to play devil's advocate, and I'm just like sometimes I'll agree with somebody, but I'm just like, you know what, I just wanna fight this point right now, and I'm just like I don't even know why I did that. But I think it's also like if you do it in like with like the right mindset and like challenging the view rather than just like trying to win an argument is the
Right.
best to do.
I think it's
sure.
a good way to like sharpen your own points too. Like if you actually, if you're always constantly around people that you agree with, I think you get kind of lackadaisical in the reason you have that view. There's some things that I get pretty straightforward, but on wedge issues, it's good to debate them and talk them out, as long as it's in good faith, because like you said, there's a lot of people that are just trying to win an argument to try and get views. And that's why, like, honestly, like I don't even for the most part, unless it's like blatant misinformation, I usually don't even like stitch people or like duet them anymore, just because it always becomes like some toxic battle that I usually I don't have time to make 4 videos about, you know what I mean?
Right.
It just it usually becomes cancerous. But like the lady the other night that tried to claim that the Texas lawsuit wasn't over, and she was like screaming into the phone. I'm like, no, hold on now, let's back up.
I've also noticed that my videos get taken down a lot less if I don't tag the person in it, which is like it seems like I'm trying to avoid a conversation with this person, but I'm just like I'm just trying to keep my content up. And when I don't tag people, it seems like the algorithm is a little bit nicer when it comes to like people, because I know I've pissed people off in the past, and there's some people that are just going to report my content just because it's my content, regardless of what it's about. So I also have to like keep that in mind, because I've people from both sides I've been seeing that are really feeling like they're being censored recently. Accounts are being deleted, and it would really bum me out if I got deleted. And I get a lot of videos taken down. honest to God, I don't know. Like, you have people like Nick Foster official who gets seemingly of like 5 videos taken down a day, and I don't know how he's like, he got banned once and hasn't been banned again since. And I'm like, if you have so much hate speech that you're getting taken down as you seem to be implying, I don't know how you still have an account. But
Well, you want to know something crazy? Last night I put up a video and it was like of one of the fights at the rally. It got community guidelines strike 3 times, but TikTok never took it down. It was the weirdest thing ever.
How does that come up? Because usually my videos just go straight to review.
Usually, especially when I was doing a lot of QAnon stuff, I would get a community guideline strike, and then I would go to the page, and it would say, strike for community, whatever the case may be. But this video, it got that 3 separate times.
And
I
never got
figured
taken down.
it get taken down, and it never. It's like it got struck, and it's like this video was taken down for community guidelines. I go to the page, people are still duetting it, stitching it, commenting, liking it. It's still up right now. It was the weirdest. Like, it's like I'm in the in the void.
The thing that frustrates me the most is when I'll like stitch a video, then it will like my video will get tagged saying like, oh, this has inappropriate content, which is referring to the original video, and then I go to that person's page and their video's still up. And I'm like,
hey, real quick, guys, while you're here, if you could like the stream, I'd really, really appreciate it. And we'll probably take questions in a minute. So if you want to put your questions up in the chat, and then I can pop them up on screen and we'll answer them. So if you have any questions, just let me know, or we'll just put them in the chat. Yeah, just type them out as you would do on the internet.
Really
kind of got lost in my words there. But I was gonna. What the fuck? Get off the screen. Get. Okay. But so I would say my biggest issue with the right now is the rise of conspiracies and how the party is becoming very, especially even like the top, like, especially like Trump and just the people falling in line with him are becoming very conspiratorial. What would you guys say your biggest issue with the left is, if you have one?
Dan, you go first.
Bitter
pass.
I don't think this is just an issue. I think it's just what we've been talking about. It's an unwillingness on both sides to really understand the other side's view, and I think the biggest issue is just people, on an individual level, looking at themselves and looking at how they can improve their openness and understanding in having these conversations. Because I think, really changing the country is going to happen like at kind of like a grassroots level. You have to kind of like change the culture on that, and I think that happens with like I think it can definitely happen with like young people just deciding that we're going to do things differently. We have different technologies. There's no reason why we should be operating in the same way that we've been operating for the past 100 years, especially with things like TikTok and stuff. I think younger people can get involved and get involved in the conversations about these things. When I was in middle school, I didn't know anything about politics. I didn't have really that much access beyond what was on the TV news. There wasn't really me and my friends having conversations about this stuff, and I think
definitely not.
Social media, there's certainly toxic aspects to it, but there's a lot of positives that we can draw from this as we because we're still very new to the social media age. I think a lot of us are still kind of figuring this out. I look back at
I think they're figuring it out too, like how to put content out.
Yeah, and like I look back at like me using Facebook in like 2008 or 2009, and just like cringe at the stuff that I thought was appropriate to be posting on the internet was just beyond me. It's just beyond me, like these like cringy like song lyrics that I'm just like, oh, this girl will see this and she'll totally know how I feel. And now I look back and I'm like, it makes me cringe so hard. But I think we're all learning it, and as like these technologies can absolutely assist us in a culture that's more beneficial to us rather than keeping old social norms that don't really benefit us in any way.
I think my biggest problem. I think actually, Verb and I would agree with you as far as like my biggest problem with the right. I think the conspiratorial, whether big or small, is a big problem, and I think a lot of that stems from the alternative media, like we were saying. But as far as the left, I think my biggest problem with the left is messaging, and I think their messaging is really bad.
That might be my biggest problem,
and it really hurts them.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was agreeing with you.
Okay. Oh, okay. So for me. So, but yeah, I think their messaging can be really bad in some instances. For example, defund the police it's not nuanced at all, and it causes a lot of people who maybe aren't as informed to just take it at face value and then preach it at face value, which gets a big reaction out of the conservatives, which then causes more polarization. So I think that's a massive issue from the left.
Right. No, I've constantly said that the messaging is so bad, whether it was abolish ICE or even, policies I agree with, like free college and stuff like that, or, any of, I agree with most of the tenets of defund the police, but it might be the worst fucking slogan I've ever heard in my life.
Oh yeah, it doesn't really sound like because I would absolutely agree with like having more like trained social workers going out to because it doesn't make sense to have a guy who's got 6 months of training, almost none of which are in handling someone who's having a psychotic break beyond just physically restraining them, which sometimes doesn't work, and then all of a sudden we have someone getting shot dead, and then we're like, well, could have this have gone differently? And it's in many cases it absolutely could have, if we had someone like a trained professional who knew how to talk to people in these certain situations. And that's gonna cost a lot more money, and that's why it doesn't really make sense to say defund the police. It's actually kind of in many ways
it's
restructuring them, reforming them, but in a lot of ways that it might require more money. So it's it doesn't necessarily make perfect sense to say defund it. But honestly, in a lot of ways, I agree with what they're saying here.
Yeah.
It definitely needs reform. Absolutely.
There needs to be less things that the police do and more money into those special set of things. You know what I mean? So instead of having 14 different jobs for the police, we need to have 6 with 20% less funding, or you know what I mean, something like that.
And I'll tell you what, as someone who's trained it, you can't go. It can't be said how beneficial something like having these officers be trained in something like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, in which they can restrain somebody without having to kill him. Because a lot of times, if these fights get physical, these officers are panicking because they don't have a good ground game to restrain these people. But if you train, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is so incredibly useful, especially in disarming someone and restraining them. I saw a video the other day of an officer who was trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, took the guy down, immediately calmed him down, and was able to restrain him and mitigate the situation where had he not known this, it very well could have been another shooting.
True.
And I think the importance of that, and making sure that, again, sometimes I see a police officer and not trying to necessarily disrespect them, but I'm you're fat and out of shape. What are you going to do beyond just pull out your gun and shoot somebody? Because you are so drastically beyond a point of athleticism that it's you can't use any of that. So it's you're going to end up resorting to something like using your firearm far more often if you're not in certain level of shape as well. So it's I think increasing the standard, making sure we have really stringent psychological examinations of people who are going into this profession, because it's an incredibly difficult career. I think maybe paying $30,000 a year for a lot of these people to be regularly risking their lives, you're not going to be getting a lot of like, candidates that are like people that they're going to choose different careers because it's like, you know what, I'm not going to risk my life for $30,000 a year.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely are going to have like people who are trained in other fields, like so you can put more funding towards those social programs, which is one of the what gets at the heart of defund the police. And then you have the issue though where it doesn't really ever address like what do we still do about the police? Like you're just taking money from the police, or at least that's the implication of defund the police. And like Driven said, like sometimes it could even cost more money for the police. I mean, that's what we saw with Camden, New Jersey, right? Is that like they reformed it and it got better, but it still costs the police budget like more money. So,
right, yeah, they just disbanded their whole department and kind of rooted out the corruption and then kind of rehired based on the merits. And I think our police definitely need to be trained more. And I remember watching an HBO documentary where it was about two cops that had like special training on like how to deal with like what the fuck, like people having manic episodes and stuff. And it was like I was like, well, why is it only these two? Like they made a big deal out of these guys are special trained and they're like a special unit of two
busy
guys.
And you're fucked.
Wait, why aren't the rest of them trained like that? Like the way those guys approached people seemed a lot better than 95% of the police that I've, they're just not, 6 months of training is just not enough for that job. It's just not. And yeah, it's not, they don't, $30,000 a year, I'm not knocking anybody that has a $30K a year job, but it's just not a lot of money. It's basically
for that
you're
risk,
barely getting by.
Yeah, and like, cause like we have, plenty of like videos, but like I went on like, when I was in high school, I don't know if I was on like 4chan, I accidentally like got one of those dark rabbit holes, but there's so many videos of like, police officers interactions like on the highway or stuff of where these people are, they walk up to a window and they're getting shot 3 times in the chest. And it's just like, that's like a side of this that we don't always get to see, because that's got to put like, a mental like strain on a lot of people. Like every single time you're pulling someone over, you're like, oh shit, I hope this is not the last time I do this. So it's like I think it's also having like an empathy, because it's easy to just say like, oh, all cops are bastards, but it's like, I mean, a lot of these people, like for instance my brother-in-law is when he's going through he just graduated with a degree in criminal justice and stuff, and I think he's like one of the best people I know. And it's just like, it's just strange to hear like kind of like things like an encompassing term like all cops are bastards, and I'm like, well, I don't think that's like fair or like representative of a lot of people who like legitimately got into this job to like do good, and
the problem is things like the thin blue wall of silence and the bad cops outweighing the good, and
the culture around like protecting their own over
right.
Like,
Well, in them working with DAs, and just stuff like that. Like they're all it's all their coworkers. So when they get in and have an issue, and that's how they end up getting out, because the system's working in their favor a lot of the times when it comes to them fucking up. If you're inside the system, it's a lot easier for it to work for you, and you're a lot more likely to have somebody that's going to manipulate the system if you're not paying them well. I mean, I just think we need to, and that's what the one thing one of the reasons why I push for a strong social safety net, because I'm all for everybody like getting out, going and starting their own business and doing all that, like that, those tenets of capitalism. Like I started my own business when I was 18, but it's like what that does is, if really anybody that what they should do as soon as they can, they should get on YouTube and download a couple stock trading courses and just learn how to run options and stuff, and do that from the time they're 13, and just get the Robinhood app on your phone, and it just pushes everybody just in, they should just be a stock trader or a money manipulator. And we're losing a lot of the smartest people to fields like that. They get hired by Goldman Sachs to be a stock analyst and make $500K a year and never have to make a trade or something, or anything like that. So I think we need to do a better job at putting emphasis on stuff like teachers, firefighters, cops, but it's got to be different.
Yeah,
Our society is fucked in that way.
Both my mom and my sister are involved in early education. My sister has just got one of her first teaching jobs out in North Carolina, and for people like my sister, I think she would have been a teacher regardless. But in a lot of these places, we're just not paying teachers enough to motivate a lot of people to be doing that, who just can't do it off. Because my sister, like I said, honestly, I think she would do the job for free. She truly loves it. She loves teaching young children, but it's you can't expect everyone to be that way. And there's some people who are just like, what, I'd rather do whatever it is, rather than just get devalued, or not devalued, but taken for granted as a teacher in the public school system, which is sad.
I mean,
one of the most important jobs there are.
Exactly. And it's it's a hard, it takes 4 years of college to be a teacher, and it's you're struggling to get by right now if you don't. I mean, there's plenty of teachers that drive Ubers, which is crazy. All right. Well, there's some new. I've seen there's some new people that popped in. So if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Big one here. What's your guys' thoughts on big conservative joint accounts like the Republican Hype House, Conservative Hype House?
Yeah, I got actually several months ago. I got asked to join the Conservative Hype House, which I respectfully declined.
Really?
I'm not a huge into the Hype House thing, to be honest. There's a couple that I follow, and sometimes they'll make a decent point, but I don't feel like I said, I don't really like to align myself with a particular party. I'm definitely not joining the Republican Hype House, that's for sure. But I just kind of like to stick on my own, so I'm not going to join them. Sometimes they have takes that I appreciate. Sometimes I think they're way off track, but that's kind of just what my feeling on that is. Matt, what do you have? Are you kind of frozen?
Matt, come back, Matt. My thoughts on the conservative and conservative Hype House. Anyway, I don't really know. I've never had too many run-ins with the Republican Hype House, but the conservative Hype House, from what I've seen, is just blatant propaganda. 95% of
is that the one that has Tyler Bluntman in it? I can't.
That's
really
the one that
remember.
has Tyler Bluntman, and they have that other kid that is even worse. That Violent Magic Sin, or I haven't seen him around in a long time, but he's the one that said all Democrats are okay with pedophilia, and I made a video about it, and it was the worst case scenario of what we were talking about earlier with that, hardcore take and just trying to own the libs, that stupid kind of rhetoric, and then they have what's his name, Topher Town Music, and he's been talking about election fraud for like a month now. Every video is like Trump's gonna win, and I just don't like people that blatantly lie to their audience. If you're just like conservative and you want to push conservative values, like cool, okay, like I don't agree with you, but that's fine. But if you're blatantly just gonna like back Trump no matter what, and then call everything fraud and all that, it's just garbage.
Yeah, I've tried to be honest. Like I kind of before the election, like was like putting so much into it that I've kind of like had to like take a step after like November 3rd. I've kind of taken a step back. I haven't even like anytime someone like is talking about like the election fraud, honestly, a lot of times I just have to just skip right past it because I just no matter like if it's someone or the right talking about it, I just like I've kind of I got so like burnt out by it that it's like it was almost like taking like a toll on like my mental health. So I had to like just step away from that stuff because honest and that's I think that's also something that's kind of important, especially when it comes to like the political TikTok, is that like it can definitely get toxic sometimes, and
Oh, for
to
sure.
like notice when it's taking a toll on you and like taking a step back, I think is also something that's like important to like, aware of, because I've seen a lot of other creators just like having to take a couple days break because it does really sometimes take a toll on you.
And like the faces and change, like political TikTok when I first joined and like barely ever uploaded is completely different than it is now. Like there's so many different like kind of people in the mix. Like when I first time I ever got on TikTok was like March maybe, but then I didn't upload very much until like August is when I really started uploading a lot. But it's like completely changed from there. Matt,
Has it really only been since August that you've been posting that much? It seems so. This year has been the strangest year.
Yeah, no. About August is when I really started posting. I'd probably posted like maybe 20 times before that over the course from like March to.
In reality, I feel like it should only be August right now. Like this year just doesn't make any sense at all to me.
Yeah,
like,
no, it's been an odd one, man. Like it's like it's gone fast, but it's like extremely slow. It's like there's so much going on every day.
When did the summer happen? I swear to God.
Right. Yeah.
It's just gone. It was just gone. There was no summer 2020. It went straight from March into August.
Matt, what's your take on the hypedy houses? Hello? Hello? I see a face. I'm sorry my guests have technical difficulties, y'all.
Yeah.
Maybe unplug. I don't think he can hear.
Unplug and replug your mic.
Yeah,
man.
Right. Maybe sign language.
What is that? The compress. Can't think of the word. Compression.
Compression?
No,
that's for audio.
Like what is a drum? It's called. It's part of the
compressor drum. Compression.
Like the section. Like there's the brass section. There's the. What is a drum? Compression. Why can't I think of the word?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not. Does someone in the chat know what I'm talking about? No. Also, I saw a question in the chat about weed. I like weed. Myself.
I was gonna ask that real quick.
Yeah, I live in LA. I live in California. I'm gonna be smoking the ganj some.
I can.
Oh, I hear you a little bit. You're coming.
Hear you a little
percussion.
Bit. Turn
percussion.
Turn up the ones and
thank you, Alaska.
Yeah.
Percussion. Percussive.
Progressive.
I was talking. Yeah, whatever. Fixing your computer percussively, which is by smacking it.
I can't hear you, Matt.
Matt, do you know sign language?
Right.
I don't, so I don't know if that helps.
You're like one of those sad videos where you hold up the notes. And now he's froze. Okay. So we answered that. I don't smoke weed. I used to smoke weed back when I was like a skater stoner kid, but I don't smoke weed anymore. I feel like it should be completely legal and free and all that. I just don't partake anymore.
In terms of drugs, actually, I hold the stance that I think that all drugs should be made legal. Obviously, I think a lot of that the money should be not put into locking people up for doing these drugs, but rather education and rehabbing and rehabilitating these people who have these drug addictions. I think would be the ideal stat there. I don't think the government has any right to be locking you in a box for doing
well, it's proven not to work, and we have Matt again.
He's back to the more clear camera. Yeah.
I think you're delayed. There we go.
Okay.
Just roll with it. Go ahead. Ball out.
Okay. All right. I was wanting to comment on that one question back, a few minutes ago, because I've talked about this on my channel before with like the different hype houses. I find them to be pretty combative and sometimes, dare I say, annoying. But I think it's honestly like a product of like the most digestible opinions, often being really popular. And that's why you have like Democratic hype house, Republican hype house being like so popular. And then, I think that's just going to be like the reality of online politics, which kind of sucks. But
it's low hanging
it is
fruit.
Yes, true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see. What was this one?
I just want to join the Sway house. I'm not.
Yeah. Right.
I think I'm more the taking my shirt off and dancing kind of.
Speaking of that side of TikTok, did you guys see Perez Hilton got kicked off? He got the boot. He laughed so hard he left the call.
I haven't heard the thing about Perez Hilton. I don't know.
Man, you laughed so hard you left the call.
Hello?
Hello?
I don't know what happened. I just got booted for a second.
You laughed so hard you left the call.
I've got a very voice laugh. Ha! Goodbye. It's kind of weird because it's like not even showing the whole screen now, but at least I'm here. I'm here.
I mean, I hear you. I see you.
What were you just saying?
I said Perez Hilton got the boot.
Oh yeah. I saw on his Twitter the video of him like crying, like calling out for
Charlie D'Amelio help me.
The D'Amelio family to help him. Like, what do you think they're gonna do?
You've been talking shit about him for months. Like, why would they fucking help you?
And yeah, he's just has a long history of doing some very weird, skeezy things. I think he released Jennifer Aniston's nudes without her permission. He was for a long time he got caught taking pictures of Miley Cyrus while she's trying to change.
Oh, lost him again.
So much for these TikTokers and their use of social media. Hot.
Yeah, I'm gonna figure out a better way to do internet next time. I'm annoyed with this, but
there's a thing.
This is wild. I don't know why all of a
sudden. What is it
I've
called?
been booted.
All right. Well, we'll do one more question. Let me see. What are y'all's thoughts on Nancy Pelosi? What should we do with her? What I say we should do. I'll take this one first. Is we should not put her back in the speaker role. But the main thing, which I know that's not going to happen, that's a big shot in the dark. But seeing as there's about 10 or 12 progressive congressmen and women in the House now, they should say they're not going to vote for her again for speaker until they put a vote for Medicare for all on the floor. That way, even if it doesn't pass, we know who's for it and who's against it. Because that's what I want to know. Because that's what these people do. They fucking keep bills off the floor so they can't vote against them or for them or whatever. So, I mean, she needs to get the boot, but that's not going to happen right now. But they should definitely withhold their vote until they get a Medicare for all vote.
Well, personally, I like that idea, except maybe just a public option that's better than ACA. Instead of maybe a Medicare for all, but that's just me. But I like that idea.
No, I'd agree with that, and also maybe she could tell us all where she gets her vibrant lizard skin from.
All right, I think that's a common thing they have in San Francisco. That vibrant lizard skin.
The fact that she's honestly 80, I gotta hand to her.
81.
It's or 81 is really impressive to me. So good for you, Nancy. Your surgeries are paying off with the lizards.
Who would who would you pick for speaker? Who would be your speaker of the house? Out of the garbage heap that is the house, for the most part.
That's tough. I would really like to see someone who, regardless of who this person is, as I was saying before, really putting an emphasis on the opposite of what McConnell is saying, is in just being someone who is going to like forcefully be bipartisan. I think is the way we are, regardless of who this person is, because like as we kind of kept on going over, it's really like one of the most prominent issues is just the complete unwillingness to work with each other, and I think if we have a speaker, someone in a point of leadership, really emphasizing how and like I said, like literally forcefully being bipartisan is maybe what we need.
I think that's good, but I would advocate for someone who's going to be forcefully bipartisan, but also someone who is running on the idea that like they are going to try and get as much through as they can, because I think most people feel like Congress has just done nothing like for years, and people just want to see like something go through. So, but yeah.
Alaska Pirates, don't disregard the Nightbot. That's just that's a bot thing that I have. Don't worry about it. It's dumb. It just
Nightbot. Whoa.
But well, since my counterparts here didn't give you an actual name, I would say if I had to pick any person out of the house, I would say Ro Khanna, because he's been about the only one that's been outspoken that Nancy Pelosi should have took the stimulus deal, because she definitely played politics with the stimulus deal when she could have gotten one at least passed through the House and agreed with Trump, and she should have put it on the floor for the Republicans not to vote for it, which I don't think they would have in the Senate. But she shouldn't have played politics with it so much. And the only one that actually came out more than AOC, more than Ilhan, more than anybody was Ro Khanna. He actually went on TV and said, "Hey, we need to get a deal done." And he's been outspoken like that in the past. So as far as I'm concerned, he would be the best for
someone who's vocally, for the people. And it kind of reminds me, though, I did really enjoy that time that Wolf Blitzer actually went after Nancy Pelosi a little bit.
Oh God, she thought like she was so entitled. Like, how dare you ask me?
Yeah, and I was just like, wow, you really expected him to just be offering you softballs the entire time. Like, good.
How dare you not,
Wolf, to really, put little coals to her feet,
right?
Because it is kind of frustrating to watch these people just be playing games with American lives. Is really frustrating, because there's a lot of people I know that are out there that really need a second stimulus check. There's and there's countless businesses that also need these stimulus checks, and then they're trying to force all these special interests into these bills and stuff, and it's like, this is not the time.
Yeah,
no,
sure.
it's garbage.
It's really aggravating. I think, I mean, going off of that, I think people are really mad that like the way the lockdown went the first time around. And that's why people are so resistant to another one, is because people feel like small businesses weren't taken care of, and they feel like just regular homes weren't taken care of. And like, if we're going to do another lockdown, I think that's like first priority. But
right. And that's what I was kind of on an island when the first Trump protest started of the lockdown. I wasn't really opposed to them for the simple fact that these people didn't get taken care of. If you'd have done a real stimulus and actually helped these people, provided for them while you asked them to lock down, then I can understand, why you would be upset that they're out here protesting. But these people, they're going to lose their business. They're going to lose their job. There's a lot of, and the government is clearly not going to help them. So it's a fucking rock and a hard place, and it sucks. And it shouldn't have to be that way, but I can see why people would have an issue with it. Clearly, people like took it way too out of hand in some places, like showing up in Michigan with like guns and at the state capitol. But I mean, I understand their frustration because I've been there. I've been fucking flat broke and no prospects, and then you add a pandemic on top of it. It was just absurd. And the only reason that first bill got passed is because the market tanked. And that's the only way. I think another one is definitely going to get passed. I'm not 100% sure that we're going to get a second stimulus. But if the market dropped 4,000 points next week, you bet your ass we'd get one. You know what I mean? And it's just such horseshit.
I mean, I think if we're going to go into another lockdown, I have a hard time seeing them like locking us down without a second stimulus. I would be someone.
They would have to.
They're like, yeah. So I feel like if that is going to happen, which kind of seems like Joe definitely seems to be leaning that way. So I mean, we'll see.
Right.
I definitely hope for, because I got a lot of friends. I've talked about on my channel a couple of times. There's a local coffee shop I go to. I'm good friends with the owner, and he's been telling me, he's like, I got a couple months left, man, and it's just like it's really tough to see that, because I mean, this particular coffee shop is like I mean, it's called Silver Lake Coffee. If anyone's from LA, it's like a staple of Silver Lake. It's like a well-known place, and it's like so someone who like seemed to have like such a solid business, for him to be going on, you got to be and there's hundreds and thousands of other small businesses in a similar position, which is really tough to see, because those family-owned businesses are really like the lifeblood of a lot of communities.
All right, and we'll leave it off on this, kind of what we started on. Why are politics so polarized right now, and why? So what do you think about that? Like, what is the biggest driving force behind polarized politics?
I don't know. Go ahead. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to necessarily beat a dead horse on this, but I think such a large part of it is the media. Really just. It's like you watch two different channels, and it's two completely different realities, and that's a huge issue. And it's a lot of these. It's kind of scary. I don't know what the solution is. You have like places like what's the British
BBC?
Yeah, BBC. Who I think there's some positives and benefits to having like a channel like that, where you have like certainly less sensationalism in there, because they're not trying to like sell views. But then it's like, do I necessarily want the government deciding everything like that I'm hearing? It's like, I don't know what the answer. I literally don't know. Like, I think just like the answer is just like as on a personal level, just making sure you're taking your information from as many sources as possible is the right way to go about that.
I think, well, first, I would like to answer the question, which would be like, why are politics polarized in general? And I think that is definitely the media. And like I said earlier, like an emphasis on alternative media, because I think that has done some definite harm in recent years with like whatever it is, like Blaze or like Daily Wire or whatever. And then like, why are politics so polarized right now? I think, the Republican friends are not going to like me for this, but I think Trump obviously had to, he pushed it. I mean, I think he ignited it quite a bit. And I don't know if we're going to be like able to see like more normalcy until like he's a little more forgotten, because the Republican Party feels like they are just centralized around this one man. But I mean, those two things, echo chambers, all that type of stuff, they all play a big part in it, I think, for sure.
Yeah, and I would say with the rise of Trump, what he popularized was the clapback, the dunking on people on Twitter. Like, that was not a normal thing before. Now you see people like Ted Cruz and Nikki Haley, people that never, they never did that before. They would tweet out like, "Oh, town hall tonight at 7:00." Now they're like, doing clap emojis and shit. It's like, dude, just pass the legislation.
Get that back.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to see that from you, Ted Cruz. You're not cool. Okay, there was a time.
He might be the Zodiac killer. Just slow.
He might be. He looks like. Did you guys see one of the Zodiac letters got deciphered? By the way,
yeah, just saw a video on that.
It might have been from Ted Cruz, but stuff like that is, and on top of that, the back and forth, the other side is evil, is big business. There's a lot of money. And you even take, like we were talking about with the Republican and conservative hype house, low-hanging fruit and the other is bad is an easy way to gain followers, gain subscribers, gain clicks. It makes for we don't have like a as much of an enemy as we did in the past. Like, it was during the Cold War. It was, we've at different times in history we've had another enemy. Like, for the most part, we're in a more like peaceful time, even though we're bombing countries every day. But so it's like the hate of the other party. Like, those guys are bad, and they're the reason for all your problems. When it's actually the establishment on both sides that are the issue. Matt Taibbi, who's a good journalist, he wrote a book called Hate Inc. that talks about a lot of the media polarization and how they they kind of feed off each other like that. But so I would say, with your media diet, get both sides, look into the narrative, don't just read the headlines, and you'll be a lot better for it. Actually dig into the story, and that's whether it's from MSNBC, CNN, and especially Fox, shit like that. It's just because both sides, they will have good stories, but like I said, you got to watch out for those main narratives of like, the liberals are going to take all your guns and steal your babies or something, and or vice versa.
Yes, or the people steal the guns. That's the fun.
Right. Well, that actually happens though.
Yeah.
All right, but yeah, guys, I really, really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Thanks
for having me,
Matt and Dan. And if you guys could like the stream on the way out, I'd really, really appreciate it. I'll probably have live stream again on Sunday, probably live stream again on Tuesday, and then Thursday I'll have a new video up on the channel. A day with Newsmax is going to be my new video. Like, what exactly? If you just watch Newsmax for a day, what are they feeding you is going to be my video. I'm going to have that up on Thursday on my channel. And then on the 20th, we're doing a big charity live stream with like 7 or 8 other TikTokers. I haven't worked out all the details yet, but it's going to be cool. So yeah, subscribe if you're not subscribed, all that jazz. Like the stream, leave a comment, and follow me on every single social media, please. All right, and peace out.